Hello again. Welcome to Study Canada International. For today's episode, we'll discuss program selection. If you've seen my previous episodes, by now you're familiar with the difference between a master's and a postgrad diploma, and you also know which schools to avoid when looking to study in Canada. So the next thing in line is to select a program. While this may sound like a pretty straightforward discussion, there are some important things one needs to consider when deciding on a program. And for today's discussion, I've listed 4 important areas of consideration, which I'll share with you. And these, when taken into account, will not only help you gain admission in your program of choice, but also help facilitate your visa process, as well as to set you up for life after school. All right, so let's jump into the discussion. Number one is to select a program that demonstrates a steady progression. What I mean by this is, if you've graduated from a bachelor's program, make sure you select a program that is rated a level higher than where you left off. Okay, it doesn't make sense for someone who has graduated from a bachelor's program applying to do an undergrad diploma in Canada. It doesn't sit well, and it may affect your chances of getting visa approval. If you've ever heard of anyone who was denied Canadian student visa on the grounds of purpose of study, chances are their program selection or their admission is in an area that does not or fails to convince the visa processing officer of a progression in studies. Number 2 is to make a career conscious choice. Okay, and by this, do not settle for any random choice simply because you want to gain an admission and come to Canada. You will settle for anything. And there are some of us who weren't really sure exactly what we wanted to do when we were doing our bachelor's or undergrad studies. So there are a lot of people who were also forced to take some programs which weren't necessarily their choice, but simply because that was what was available at that time. I would encourage you that if you're applying to come to Canada, do well to gain admission in an area where you want to, see yourself, progress in the future professionally. Okay. There are lots of exciting opportunities out here on the market that I think anyone will be doing themselves a great disservice by selecting or settling for any random program. The third is, and this may not necessarily be available to every program, and it's a bit tied to the second point, but in case your program has a co-op option, I recommend that you go in for a co-op option because co-op programs are great. They offer you an opportunity to earn some experience. They connect you with industry employers where you do some co-op. Some people may call it internship. You will gain that experience. You will learn about the Canadian professional culture, and this is an invaluable piece of experience to add on your CV. If you've ever heard of the infamous Canadian experience, I think a co-op program will help you get around that problem. The Canadian experience is this, requirement that you don't see in job postings, but I guarantee you, more than 70% of employers are looking to hire people who have the Canadian experience. So I've heard people have asked me questions like, we've heard Canada is looking for employers in so many areas. Why aren't they hiring people from abroad? And I say, yes, Canada is looking to hire, we have opportunities in every area you can ever imagine. But the problem is that Canada is a very selective country. They are only looking to select highly qualified people. And not just that, but individual employers are also looking for people who have the relevant experience. So it's not that the foreign experience is irrelevant. It's that they place a lot of emphasis on the Canadian experience. The fourth and final one is it's better for you to apply early than later. And what I mean by this is if you intend on studying in Canada, do not wait maybe more than 5 years after your bachelor's after you graduated from your bachelor's program before applying. The earlier, the better. As an example, there are some schools in Canada who will refuse applicants admission if you have been out of school longer than 5 years. And a clear example is Algonquin College, which I saw recently, but there are other schools as well. And this is all based on a simple logic that the schools believe the longer you've been out of school, the lesser your chance of being granted a study permit or a student visa. All right, so now that you've checked the boxes for what to look out for when deciding on a program, you can go ahead and make that program selection. And to wrap up today's video, I have two questions that came in by email. The first is, which programs do you recommend? Well, I will not throw any program under the bus or rate one program over the other, but I'll tell you based on my personal experience that areas in IT and trades, so by trades like the technical skills, known in some other countries, technical skills, things like plumbing, carpentry, they are really great. These are areas that there's a lot of deficit on the market. As an example, in Ontario recently, a law has been passed for high school students to complete a certain credit in technical programs before graduating. So this tells you how much gap there is on the Canadian market for people with these technical skills. IT is definitely another one, and then engineering is also a good option. But if it's not your thing, you're not from an IT or trades or engineering background, do not worry. I think business programs also do really well, and I'm sure there are other areas that will also offer you great opportunities. And then the second question is, would you choose a master's over a postgrad diploma? We've talked about this in the previous video. There isn't a lot of difference between the two, and I think there are advantages and disadvantages for each. I think a lot of postgrad diploma programs are quicker and they tend to be cheaper than master's program. But the most important thing is that they've been rated to be equal by the National Qualification Framework. So I think the most important thing is for you to gain admission in an area which, leads you to your the professional area you want to find yourself into. So I think that is the most important thing you should consider when making a decision between a master's and a postgrad diploma. What does it matter? At the end of the day, if the area you're looking to go into is available in both postgrad and master's option, well, the ball is in your court. You decide based on cost and availability, and whichever one grants you admission, go with whichever works for you. But if the program you're looking for is only available in a master's option, there you go. There's the answer to your question. So that brings us to the end of today's video. Please like, share, and subscribe in case you haven't already. And thanks for watching. See you in my next episode.